like you heard that tagline, here we shape policy and make sure development is advanced. Now, beyond that, we talked about sustainable finance earlier on. And for those that were glued in, we're looking at Africa. My producers had to call and say, smile less. I had to keep smiling because here we are feeling the pinch. We see the devastation every day. It gets to conflict. So when it comes to financing, we want it. And when it comes to accountability, we should hold people responsible. So I want to say thank you to everyone that has been there. We are going to continue the conversation on early exchange. And for those that are wondering, we must get better because we don't have an excuse. And there's no other place for us to run to. We want to also inform you, for those that are not aware yet, that Nigeria, from Monday, which happened to be 19, the federal government of Nigeria has officially issued a $500 million bond, and it's open. So mind you, if you think that you can put your money where your mouth is, or if you are an investment person, be it a company, be it an individual, you can be part of this particular bond issuing. The bond is part of the government financing initiative, and it will carry a 9.75 per annual interest, and is set to mature in 2029. That's just barely 5 years. So it's not too long. It's not like sustainable bonds that take 10, 15, 20 years. This is homegrown. This is a whole lot of patriotism. And this is also assured that, hey, your money won't get missing because those particular measures have been put there to be part of this particular discussion and talk beyond just the money, beyond the investment, is our public and policy analyst, Dr. I call you, Sam Orovwuje. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Chooks.
You're
It's
welcome.
my pleasure to be here.
When I said doctor, you're shaking your head. It's more like we don't have an excuse. If Nigeria has to move forward, that doctor has to be affixed in your name in the nearest future.
Thank you very much for the sentiment.
You're welcome.
Thank you
Yes.
for having me.
Okay. Now we're looking at the official issuance of the $500 million domestic dollar bond, and that subscription opened on the 19th. There is no restriction as long as you are within this particular geographical location, or even if you are also outside, you can go and subscribe to this particular bond. Let's start this way first. Do you think is a good way going forward?
Yes, I think when you look at financing option, bond is one of the financing option. So the government taking an initiative to raise $500 billion.
$1 million.
Million dollar, right?
I wish
Sorry.
it was billion though.
No, million, sorry. Just $1 million bond in the right direction. And if you look at the targeting option for raising that bond, I think is a welcome development to provide additional security to secure the farmlands and see other opportunity on how best we can raise money to finance other initiative by the government. So in itself is a welcome development. The tenor is okay, 5 years tenor in terms of where you can recoup your final investment. Then the interest rate element, as it were, of 9.75% is equally a very good earning on that bond. So how best that bond will be subscribed to remain to be seen in the nearest future. But I think if you look at the history of other bonds that will be issued by the federal government, whether they are local or whether they are external, more often than not, they've always been oversubscribed. In that regard, therefore, but my worry is that the target for which this bond is initiated must be seen to be used for that specific purpose, so that those who have invested in the bond will know specifically that that element of investment is dedicated to solve a particular issue in the country.
The element of this particular investment is dedicated to solve the issue for which it came for in the first place. You see. Okay, now for those that are looking forward to getting involved in this, let me give you the full gist of it. Now, the auction for these bonds will remain open till August the 30th, giving investors a sufficient window to participate. And also, the settlement date, when investors have purchased, confirmed, and interest will accrue, is set for September 6th, which means that by September 6th, you should have your certificate. Everything should be certified that, yes, I took part in this. Now, 5-year investment, and investors can purchase units at a minimum of $1,000 each, with initial minimum subscription set at $10,000. That's for 10 units. Subsequent investment can be made in multiples of $1,000. Now that sounds good. Now, if you're Nigerian, one thing is sure. We have this hot patriotism spirit in us, and we want to see our nation succeed. And just as Mr. Sam has put it, as long as this particular finance is going directly for the purpose it's meant for, we will want to be part of it. So now let's get back to these bonds. Before we get into questions surrounding this, should we look more at bonds, be it internal and external, as against loans?
No, they are all financing option at a particular point in time when you're making an investment decision or a capital decision. The options that are available, depending on the which way you want to go into the market. So it's not bad in itself. A bond itself is just a financial instrument that you can use to get some investment financing. So there's nothing wrong about external loan, whether bonds, whether they are local, whether they are external. The point is that once those loans are tied to specific projects, then those projects, those money must be used for that specific project. When you look at the tenor and you look at the opportunities there, I think it's targeted at certain levels of persons where a minimum at which you can purchase about $10,000, if I got that figure correctly.
That's your first
Yeah,
purchase. They can now make multiple.
So $10,000, if you convert it to the local currency,
Let's not go there.
yeah, so you know that what that speaks to. So
That will scare people away.
No, not necessarily. So they just targeted at a particular market. And I think, like I mentioned earlier, it might be oversubscribed. But what is important is once these bonds are issues and the government is able to recoup those investments, these targets in terms of how to secure the farmlands and some other initiative, that money must be specifically directed to that element so that we can get a justification and value for money.
Okay. Now, we are also joined on this discussion by the president of the Association of Small Business Owners Association of Nigeria, Dr. Femi Egbesola. You're welcome to Soup Pulse this beautiful Wednesday, sir.
Morning, and thank you for having me.
Very much. Point of correction, this is early exchange. My mind keeps going to that beautiful afternoon. You're welcome. Now, let's hit you this way first. For those that are looking at small businesses, those that are looking at this particular bonds that are coming, do you see your members signing up for this?
Well, like the commentator in the house has said, this is targeted towards a particular class. Not every small business owners can be able to set aside $10,000 for safekeeping for about 5 years. But at the same time, we have some in the medium class that we call medium enterprises that will be able to afford this, and I think it is a good option. Generally, one of the key things that business owners look for is where they can invest their fund. I think this is one of the best investment alternative that the federal government has provided. And I think it's going to be very, very attractive to quite a number of business owners, both here in Nigeria, in diaspora, who are Nigerians. And I feel that, like he also said, it will be oversubscribed. We look forward to seeing quite a number of business owners in the middle class, in the medium enterprises category, buying into this. And we also look forward to CBN perhaps liberalizing the conditions over time. We know that it is going to be a continuous exercise. So we look forward to a time where it will be liberalized such that small business owners can also take advantage of this and also make more money and smile more to the banks.
Good. We also look towards that. Now let's look at the point where this monies, these bonds, the proceeds from this is going to be used. We've talked about agric. Mr. Sam brought up that particular issue of sending agric extension workers across states and also agric financing. Now this is where it hits you, and it hits you very hard. Do you see people within your association positioning to take part in this extension work for those within the agric sector or that particular value chain? How prepared or positioned are they to benefit from this?
All right. To start with, I think CBN, by extension federal government, needs to give more clarity on how the investment through this bond will be used. There are speculations that it may be used for agricultural purposes, for infrastructure, for healthcare, for education, and all of that. We are waiting for a categorical statement from government to know exactly the direction they want to go with the fund raised with this bond. But coming down to your question now, if it is for agriculture, I must say, I'll say here loud and clear that our members are positioned for all opportunities, not just agriculture. Incidentally, agriculture becomes one of the most lucrative business in Nigeria today, and it's also one of the most promising. And for that reason, our members are already scattered around the agricultural value chain, and they are ready to take advantage of any opportunity that comes their way. As I speak with you, we have quite a number of opportunities that are on the line that are coming from the federal government, from other investors, and from international organizations that has been able to scale up members to be able to embrace opportunity and make good use of those opportunities. So we are waiting for government to take their stand, make their direction known, and you will see the way our people make the best of the opportunity.
Now let's look at economic impact. To what extent is this going to impact the Nigerian economy? Should this be subscribed or oversubscribed?
Whether it's oversubscribed, whether it's fully subscribed, what is important, like I mentioned in the earlier conversation, once government target a particular sector and you are trying to raise an investment in terms of bonds, once those bonds are recouped fully, the purpose for which those bonds are meant for must be used must be used for those line item by which the federal government or the central bank has issued that bond. So the issue here is to what extent would this bond make an impact in the sector to which the government want to use this money for. But like Dr. Egbesola said, it's too early. What we just get from the media scan is that it will be used to secure farmland, to be used to improve on the infrastructure in agriculture. But it's those elements are made fully open to the public, then we can speak to the impact. But there's no doubt in my mind that if the fund is judiciously used for the items that the federal government is advertising for that bond, it will go a long way in impacting the economic positively. But the worry is like some other bond is that when you raise those bonds, sometimes the government use the bond for some other purposes for which those bonds are not meant for. So if transparency and accountability and the sector that is dedicated to particularly security is well monitored and the funds are deployed in those directions, I'm sure it will make that economic impact.
Okay, making that economic impact is what every one of us want to see and are longing for. Dr. Egbesola, let me come to you. We are going to go a bit away from this, but not far. Now, speculatively, we are looking forward to maybe this being targeted on agriculture. But now let's ask this question. Some months back, there was this African Development Bank loan that came for agriculture going to different local governments. Every local government was supposed to be part of it. That was announced. Did your members get that?
To a large extent, I would say no. And this is because most of the programs like these are shrouded in secrecy. We do not have clear information about how it is going to take place, how members can actually benefit from that program, and what they really need to do. Yes, we have some form of linkages with the local government, but you will discover that most times the local governments are not performing their functions as they should be, such that it is difficult for quite a number of us to understand how they operate very well. I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done to restructure our local governments to be able to work in a structured manner that we have at the center. And I think when that happens, we'll be able to function more, collaborate more, and partner more with the local government. But I must also say that beyond the local government, the Africa Development Bank is doing a lot in the agriculture sector, and our association is also benefiting from the Africa Development Bank initiative directly. And this has also impacted many of our members who are able to now scale up their farming business and are able to also grow to a point that they are now producing so much that they not only sell it within their communities alone, they sell in and around Nigeria and even export to other countries. And that to us is a good way to go. So we're looking forward to more initiatives like that, not just from Africa Development Bank, but from other support institutions, from federal government and other international organizations to come in to see how they can support agriculture. That's the best way for us now. And that's the only way we can liberate ourselves from poverty. And I did say the other time, our members are already in agriculture. We are ready for it. We have distributed ourselves in all the value chain of agriculture. There's hardly an agricultural practice that we do not have members already working with. And I think the best way to go, like I did say, is to encourage everyone to put hand on deck to improve and scale up agriculture business in Nigeria.
Thank you. Now, let's look at our debt sustainability. Given the burden of debt we are on right now, and this bonds that is coming, and if possible, new bonds are likely going to come, to what extent is that going to impact us?
Well, government is a continuum. Government will continue to borrow money. What is important is that there's nothing wrong in borrowing.
What about how it's spent?
I'm coming to that. Once you borrow money, they should be used for the purpose for which those monies are meant for. Because when you look at the tenor of the bond that we talk about now, it's a 5-year tenor. So the cost of financing has been factored into that bond. Therefore, the government has an obligation to realize that bond completely by end of 5 years. But what is important is that if you put these bonds to use in the sector to which they are meant to cater for, then the impact, the incremental impact on society is more often than not very important in terms of development. On the other hand, when you look at the ratio of debt to GDP, most times people talk about these ratios in a rigid manner. What is important is the capacity for you to be able to finance or refinance some of those loans. And when those loans don't fall due as at when, you can always renegotiate those loans, as it were. In addition to that, a borrowing institution or a lending institution rather will not lend money to you when the basic characters of lending are not in place. Therefore, for the country to be able to lend money from those institutions, that means the windows and the debt to GDP ratio that we talked so much about here in Nigeria are in place for the government to be able to get to the levels of those loans, issuance of bond, and all other alternative financing option that is available to the government. Therefore, you have what you call underwriters for some of those bonds. So if those underwriters think that instrument is not a good instrument, first and foremost, they will not underwrite that instrument. Therefore, the bond itself, on the surface value, has all the elements of criteria for those who has put the bond in place and those who underwrite the bond. And if you talk about other loans, all the major elements of how you assess a loan, whether it's individual, whether it's a corporate loan, whether it's even a public sector loan. Once those elements are intact, then people will always release those funds, in my view.
Okay. Dr. Egbesola, before I come to you, let's also look at this. Now, the bond is in dollars, not in naira. Is there a factor there looking at devaluation and leaving it in dollars?
No, not necessarily in the devaluation. I think they want to pull in some foreign currency that will show up the reserve as well. So I don't think it's bad that it's denominated in international currency. The idea is that money will pull in form of dollar investment, in my view. So that will reflect the economy when that kind of money comes in as well.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Egbesola, I'm coming to you now. Now, Nigeria is selling bonds. The banks are recapitalizing. All the major banks are recapitalizing. We are looking forward to maybe see the merger. That news has not hit us yet. But right now, we see those SMS. It's coming to everyone's phone. To what extent is this merger, this extra money going to the banks, this Nigeria raising bonds, selling bonds, to what extent is it going to profit the entrepreneur out there? To what extent is it going to be able to make the person with the idea walk in and get financing?
Well, in the short term, it's going to impact us negatively in the sense that when the country is mopping up fund, when the banks is mopping up fund, we discover that you have a very low liquidity. And you know that we business owners really need money to work with. We need to continue to have money to be able to run our businesses. And when now the government is also promoting the culture of saving through bond or investment through bond, the banks are also telling you to come and buy shares in a way of also saving your money, even though it is an investment. It is in a way also mopping up fund from the market. And that to us is not going to work well with us in the short term. But in the long term, I think it is going to benefit us generally. It's going to benefit the economy. It's going to benefit the FX market. And by extension, it is going to benefit the business owners. Because if we have enough money for government to be able to fix our infrastructure, to be able to also work with the key critical sector of the economy, I think it is at the end of the day going to be for our general good. So for us, we support this initiative. In fact, we see it as one of the best initiatives in our time, the first of its kind happening in Africa. And we do hope, like my colleague in the studios did say, that government should this time be able to be more transparent by ensuring that this money, this fund, goes to the identified critical areas that they want to invest it on. We also want to see some form of transparency by the government coming up to tell us what they've been able to do, how these achievements and this investment are being measured, and for us to be able to also gauge the impact together at the end of the exercise. So we see it as a good idea, and we want to, for now, see how we can cope with the negative impacts that may be very temporary. And eventually, when the banks are synergized, when they recapitalize and they are better and bigger, I think it will work out for all of us because they will now be able to also do more lending to the business sector. They'll be stronger. They will have more confidence of even the international investors who will be able to domicile money for them to also lend to us at the end of the exercise. When the government is also strong by having enough liquidity, by being able to fix our FX and other key critical area of the economy, it will all work for our better good and our good.
Okay, one more question for you. Before we get to work better for everybody's good, let's look at that transparency side of it. We, the citizen, the person investing, most times we are always docile. We don't ask, we don't request, we don't stand up and get counted. Who should we hold responsible for transparency issues when it comes to these bonds?
Well, as far as this bond is concerned, it is the fiscal policy drivers, the fiscal policy makers that we should be able to hold responsible, starting from the presidency down to the Minister of Finance, down to CBN, and those that are the driver of this initiative, and they are the one that we should hold responsible. And that's why I did mention that there's need for them to be more transparent so that we will all believe in this. You know, this is just the pilot phase. Other phases of these are coming. So whatever happens during this phase will, in a good way, encourage or otherwise more investors in other phases that are to come. We pray and we pray so hard that this time government should get it right. And we also pray that they should be more transparent this time, such that everybody will see where they have invested their money, what that money has been able to achieve over time, and be encouraged to do more. Nigerians in diaspora really believe in this country. They want to put their money here. They want our economy to grow. They don't want us to be migrating here and there again. But the only way this can be achieved is if government is also responsible and responsive to the needs and yearnings of Nigerians. If it works, I can assure you, Nigerians here locally and those in diaspora will put in all their funds to support the economy by investing in this month and other initiative of governments.
Okay, thank you. We have this particular diaspora funding comes in bonds across different African countries. Now, this particular one is not directly or said to target them. But we know very well that for those that look at remittance, that is personal. Should we see more of diaspora bonds coming out of not just Nigeria, but African nations, directly targeting a particular sector? Is it something that is doable?
No, I think it's one of those strategies. Naturally, remittances are what people earn offshore and try to bring part of their money back home. In Africa, you have a greater chunk of money that comes in terms of remittances. But then the government, on the other hand, particularly in Africa, where you have a lot of diaspora commission, these commissions have initiatives that target the diaspora. When you create wealth elsewhere, some of those wealth that you create should come back home or in a way that you can impart your home country. So if government is targeting such pool of funds that's in the diaspora, is a welcome development. Again, like Dr. Egbesola mentioned earlier, what is critical is that when these funds come in, they must go into the rich sector where the government has earmarked those funds to use. On the other hand, if you look at it from the point of remittances, remittances has benefited the host country, particularly where individuals has put money into in terms of investment in the bank, deposits, buying houses. Those elements in terms of investment from the diaspora has helped to grow the economy over a period of time. But in terms of strategy, whether the government should focus on using diaspora funding or investment in terms of bond or in terms of loan, particularly those who have diaspora association where they pool resources together, where they have a common investment. I think we can take advantage of those portfolios for the common development of Africa. But what the citizens are looking out for is transparency, accountability, and how to see how those funds impart the greater majority and the public good.
How to see how those funds impact greater majority. That's good. Now, Dr. Egbesola, let's look at currency stability. The Naira fluctuated way up, down in the last 4-5 months. It went as far as 50%. Looking at these bonds, or any other one that will come after it, do you see it being a means to stabilize the Naira? Is it possible?
Of course, yes. And I believe that this is one of the major reasons why the government has brought up this initiative, is to show up foreign currency to support our Naira, to make sure that we have enough FX to trade and to support the key infrastructural areas, particularly for those also doing business that will always need foreign exchange from time to time. So yes, it's going to really help. It's going to help to stabilize the Naira. It's going to also remove a lot of stress from Naira. But beyond that, I also believe that this is also a short-term alternative. We should also be looking forward to implementing an initiative that will be long-lasting. And one of such initiatives is ensuring that ease of doing business is improved. We're able to export more of what we produce here instead of importing. Government should be very strategic about supporting business owners in Nigeria to be able to export and earn foreign exchange to the country. That is the only way we can sustain the Naira, and Naira will appreciate better. We have quite a number of programs that the government has mentioned over time, but the the implementation has somehow be shady and not impactful enough. I think there is need for government to now come down to the round table, bring about the economic team to be able to look at how strategically they can focus on growing Nigerian businesses to be able to export and be able to earn foreign exchange. That is the sustainable way to help cushion the effect of these effects and sustain an era.
Thank you very much. Growing Nigerian businesses, bring goods to the market, and that is the best way to sustain the currency and the economy. Thank you very much, Dr. Egbesola. It's always fun and good having you on, not just Souk Paul's Early Exchange and every of our program. I want to say thank you for coming in. Have yourself a beautiful day, sir.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Mr. Sam, now I'm left with you. There's this particular phrase that is always there. Produce Nigeria, market Nigeria, buy Nigeria. When are we going to achieve that?
The point is that the government itself must show some responsibility in trying to encourage consumption of made in Nigerian goods. Then the citizen as a collective, we must find a way to patronize made in Nigeria or made in African goods. Like Dr. Egbesola just rightly mentioned, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement area or zone or whatever you call it that has been put in place is 2020 to 2021 has not really come into full fruition. And when you look at it from the perspective of international conspiracy, of Anglophone, Francophone, Lusophone, and all that, the continental trade, we're supposed to scale up trade and investment in Africa is challenged. But then we must look inward by consuming what we produce. We can export within Africa, and that initiative is within the African Free Trade Agreement, where you can do trade among African countries, among the 54 African countries, and you can collect your money in your local currency. So there are no inhibition, there are no barriers in terms of tariff collection. So therefore, as a government and as a people, for us to be able to sustain our economy, we must consume what we produce. That will help directly or indirectly to create more jobs and more foreign exchange, even within the continent, and small and medium enterprises will grow in a sustainable manner. And this issue of hunger, poverty, particularly multi-dimensional poverty, that stand over 89 point something million Nigerian can be addressed. So we must look inward, not just the sloganeering of consume what is in Nigeria. We must take initiative. And the culture of over-reliance on import will continue to be a major challenge in Africa until leadership and until the citizens take it up upon themselves that when you spend your money out, you are indirectly depleting your own resources within your environment. So it's a collective responsibility, not only the government, but the government should be the person who play more of the advocacy. When they do government businesses, they should consume made in Nigerian goods. I saw the governor of Anambra, who has made a decision that will continually use the local fabrics that is done within his own state to encourage the culture of textile manufacturing in that state.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sam. We will keep saying this. We will not stop saying it. And we will keep at it till we all join, not just the line, but get busy, get our hands dirty, and progress this nation. We are going straight to human capital development. And let you know that as we speak right now, there is a training that is ongoing, and we'll be talking to it. We'll be talking about it. Now, the Nigeria Institute of Policy and Strategic Studies. Once you hear that, what comes to your mind is Kuru. Yes, you're right. Now, in conjunction with ADS, the African Development Studies Center, they are organizing a strategic insight course for top-level managers. Now, you can't excuse yourself from this. When we say we need to get productive, it's all about our ability not just to learn, but to unlearn, not just to open our heart, but be able to get taught to go back to where we are coming from and teach others. I have a top level teacher in the house, and he will say, if you don't train them, don't blame them. So this is where ADS is coming in, and that particular training is happening right now. So, Mr. Sam, this is your turf. This is where you hold sway. To what extent should we hold training important in organizations?
Training is very critical to human development. Like you said earlier, if you don't train them, don't blame them. Capacity is a major driver of any business. And once you don't build capacity, then the business will suffer, because what goes into the business is a direct function of people, human capacity to be able to think through processes, problem solving, and decision making. So constantly you must recalibrate. If you use the concept in the learning lexicon, where you talk about learning, unlearning, and relearning, there are certain basic principles that were in the shelf maybe about 6 months ago. If you look at those basic principles 6 months after, and you are using those elements to calibrate your processes or your decision-making process, it may be faulty. Therefore, constantly, you need to improve on capacity. You need to retrain and retrain people so that they can function optimally on their job. Then capacity equally help in igniting the human possibilities, because when you think possibilities, then you can make a major change in society. Therefore, human capacity is a major fulcrum which organizational development competencies will improve over a period of time. And that's why learning, if you like, training and development are critical elements of human capital development, and they are essential element of the human resource management system that enables other departments, whether operation, whether sales, whether marketing, whether research, can operate optimally and deliver the organizational set goals.
Thank you very much. Now, we've seen ADSC do this over time. For those particular courses, those particular training that people shy away from because they are scared of it. You hear names like the National Institute of Policy and Strategic Studies, and you think top government officials. You think those within the security services, the highest of the ranks. You think those within the civil service, the highest of the ranks. But now, ADSC is making it possible for this collaboration to happen, which you don't need to go there. For this specific type of training, you can now come in and be part of this training. Should we be looking and seeing more of this kind of collaborations?
Yes, I think for human capital development, collaborations are major driver. And this one, African Development Studies Center and the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Study has put up this program, what we call Strategic Insight, to develop top managers within the public sector in particular, with a view to building their capacity to respond to the changes, particularly in public sector management. Like I mentioned earlier, capacity is very crucial, very critical to problem solving, to decision making, to driving organizational growth and development. Therefore, this partnership, this collaboration will help top managers within the public sector to take advantage of this relationship between African Development Studies Center and the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies. So the focus essentially is in the area of policy development, policy execution, policy analysis, and policy execution. So once you have this element, which is a core area of public sector management, then we'll have a public sector that will be able to deal with the current challenges, particularly emerging trends, new challenges, and leveraging on new ideas and techniques to solve public policy making options.
Okay, leveraging on new ideas. The keyword there being new ideas. Because it's possible that the problems of yesterday are quite way different from the problems of today.
Yes, constantly. That's why you need to retrain, recalibrate your human capacity to be able to deal with emerging issues.
To deal with emerging issues. Now, I want to say thank you very much for those that have been there logged on from the beginning to this particular time. Thank you very much, Mr. Sam.
My pleasure, Chief.
I always want to call you Dr. Sam. Permit me to just keep that for now, till 3 years from now. Thank you very much for everyone that has been part of Early Exchange. Remember, this is the only nation we have, and we have no excuse not to make it better. This is Early Exchange. So apart from shaping policy, we advance development. And it's me, it's you. Thank you very much for everyone that has been behind the cameras and those in technical. Thank you, and have yourself a beautiful, beautiful Wednesday. My name is Chooks, John Rogers Chooks. Bye.
Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.